Welcome to the first episode of Diary of a Tiger with Markel Crawford on the Kazuki Network. Today's special guest is none other than our new head coach for the University of Memphis Tigers, Tubby Smith. This will be my first time sitting down face-to-face to talk with Coach Smith. In this episode, we will get to know Coach Smith and get a look into his journey as a head coach. Now, we all know the legendary status of Coach Smith, but I want to know a little bit about what was it like to be crowned a national champion at the University of Kentucky. Speaking of UK, what was it like to coach players such as Tayshaun Prince and Rajon Rondo? Yeah, Rajon Rondo. I also want to know what he expects out of the team this year and some of the expectations out of me as a leader and a veteran. Trust me, this is one episode you do not want to miss. Sit back and enjoy. This is Diary of a Tiger with yours truly, Markel Crawford on the Kazuki Network. Where kinky hair goes to unthought of dimensions. Why is it so fly? 'Cause hip-hop kept some drama.
It's R&R on sports.
Hello, I'm Uncle Howard.
Jennifer Conroy.
I'm Larry, the fantastic Robinson. Your host for R&R on sports. Get Out podcast. Get after us. We look forward to having you.
R&R on sports. Part of the Kazuki Network.
Rolling down the street with my radio on, listen to Funky Politics.
The mayor of the city of Memphis, Mayor Jim Strickland. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Laid back with my mind on my money and my money on my mind.
Dr. Sharon Griffith. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good afternoon.
What you say, Grandpa?
Did he call me Grandpa?
We keep it real, we keep it right, and we keep it funky.
Funky Politics. Part of the Kazuki Network.
What's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Diary of a Tiger with our very special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach for University of Memphis. How you doing, Coach?
I'm well, thank you, Markel.
I really appreciate you for coming on, Coach. Starting off, where did the love of the game of basketball come from?
That's a big question. I mean, that's about the game, as a kid, learning how to compete in everything, growing up in a household with 16 other siblings, and having an older brother who was very athletic and very involved in athletics, and wanting to be around him. He was out there shooting hoops on, it was a corn house, and we had an old peach basket, literally nailed to the house, to the corn house, and he would be out there shooting, and he's 10 years old I am, so when I was 10, he was 20. So when I'm 5 years old, he was still in college, still in high school. But, the love of the game started then, just competing, whether it was in basketball, dodgeball, kickball, whatever it was I wanted to. But that's where the love of the game started.
Growing up with 16 other siblings, just talk a little bit about how does that, shape you into the man you are today?
Well, in any experiences, every experience you ever had, whether it was with your in-laws, with your relatives, with friends, with with your teammates, opposition, opponents, we all have that competitive spirit in us, that we want to be the best and that we want to win, and that's so. Knowing that I had 12 sisters and 4 brothers, the competition for anything, whether it was for food, clothing, for affection from our parents. It was competitive, as far as, I don't care if we were playing just marbles or whatever. So that's, but when I say they, I'm talking about my siblings and my brothers and sisters were, you had to, and the older ones, and I'm the 6th oldest out of 17. So you learn from your older brothers and sisters. Sisters that played volleyball and competed in softball, and as I mentioned, my oldest brother, who I really looked up to and still look up to. But they're the ones, whether it's racing to see who will be the first one to the table for dinner, or racing to go get something for my parents. If my dad said, or my mom sent you to do something, it became a competition between siblings. And you talk about sibling rivalry. It's not necessarily because you're all looking for that. You're always looking for that, compliment from your parents. Or Tubby, you did a good job, or thanks for doing, and it wasn't a matter of, and my parents didn't really talk about winning or competing, but you knew that you had to get the job done. So if you did the best job, you got the best pat on the back. You got the biggest reward. And so that you learn that off early on in life as a kid, that if I do my work, if I bring in the best grades, I'm going to be complimented by my parents.
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach for the University of Memphis. Coach, talk a little about, when did you know that you wanted to be a D1 coach?
I knew I wanted to coach after Cecil Short, my 9th grade math teacher, saw me playing basketball at lunchtime. I went to George Washington Carver, which was predominantly was the black school in the county, in the lower part of St. Mary's County. And this might be a long story, but that's when you asked me a question. I want to lead up to how how I got into coaching and how I got to D1 coaching. It started when I was in the 9th grade. I saw a game, and they were consolidating schools. Integration had just taken place in Southern Maryland in the 60s. So in 1966, I was going from George Washington Carver, which is all black school, to Great Mills High School, which was was all white pretty much. And they were going to change George Washington Carver to a middle school. And so Cecil Short, math teacher, came to the school bus one day, asked my dad if I could come out for the basketball team. I'm on the JV team. Midway through the JV, through that season, they moved me to varsity. I'm in the 9th grade. But between the 9th and 10th grade, I saw the 1966 NCAA championship game between UTEP, which was Texas Western at the time, and the University of Kentucky. And it was played at Cole Fieldhouse at the University of Maryland, at Cole Fieldhouse, at their basketball arena. And it was for the national championship. And I saw an all-black starting team beat the all-white Kentucky team. And it was a watershed moment for me as far as coaching was concerned. I already had a great experience with Cecil Short, and I always identified with him, and he'd been a role model. We still talk today. And so from that point on, I knew I was going to coach, and I knew I was going to teach. And then I had the experience of my oldest brother being a teacher and sisters being teachers. So, from the 9th grade, and as soon as I knew, and that's why I tell, like yourself, players, the sooner you can identify what your love and what your passion is, the better you're gonna be in it. So, I go from a high school coach. I get a high school coaching job back at my alma mater, Great Mills High School. I go from there to Hope County High School in Rayford. I go from there and then my former college coach sees my team play, and you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. He sees my team play, and he said, Tubby, you ought to think about getting into college coaching. So from there, I go to Virginia Commonwealth University for 7 years as an assistant coach. I go to South Carolina for 3 years as assistant coach. I go to Kentucky for 2 years. So now and I tell people when they ask me that question, I say, do you have time? Because it took me 18 years to become a Division I head basketball coach at Tulsa University of Tulsa. Okay, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yes, sir. This is Diary of a Tiger with our very special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach for University of Memphis. And don't forget to go listen to our shows on the Kazuki Network, R&amp Sports, Blues in the Basement, Funky Politics, 3BC, and of course, my show, Diary of a Tiger. Coach, here's some of the things you look to get out of your players on a daily basis.
What we're trying to help them achieve is just become men of character. To be that you have to do the job. You have a responsibility, and each person on that team, your teammates are counting on you. Just like growing up in a household with other siblings, you had chores and jobs to do, and my dad was a former World War II veteran, was wounded in 1943, so he was about organization and about discipline and about getting the job and finishing the job. So I learned, and so those are the values that we want to share with our players, with you and the players wherever we've been. I take a lot of pride in our guys that are there to get an education. that first and foremost, you're at the University of Memphis or at the Texas Tech, wherever I've been, University of Minnesota, Kentucky. I'm proud that all of our guys graduate. And that's because we talk about getting an education. We don't talk about getting a degree. Anybody can get a degree. There are degrees in a lot of different things. And not just in business or in sportscasting or journalism, but you can get a degree in just about anything. But are you educated? So we're trying to teach players how to make good decisions, the best decisions. And sometimes, as my dad used to say, you have to make a decision and then make it right. You're not always going to make the right choice, but you can make it right later on if you just stick with it. And that's the same way in basketball. You come down, you turn the ball over. You don't want to do it again. You don't want to complicate things by doing something else. So you want to just move on. Go to the next best thing. What's the next best thing to do in life? So we want to teach players to count on one another, to be unselfish. Not just play unselfish, but to be unselfish and help and share, not just in the victories, but in everything that we do.
So you talked a little bit about that togetherness, that discipline. How big are you on bringing in that family-oriented feel to the game?
That family?
Yes, sir.
Well, obviously coming from a family of 17, I appreciate having mom and dad in the home and brothers and sisters that help me read, write, help me learn the skills that you have to have in order to be successful, in order to survive in life. But family, and that's what we're about. I really think that it's about love. You got to love your fellow man, and if you love thy enemies and love, you've got to. But so if you got to love your family. When it's blood, and that's what we remember. When we get together,
yes, sir.
We break from the huddle. We say 1, 2, 3, family. It used to be hard work, or there are other mantras that you might use or sayings that you might use. But I like the word family. And you guys were the ones that in the huddle when I first came here said, Coach, let's use family, and that was great. But it's about, because when you talk about family, you'll do anything for your brother or sister, your mom and dad. Your cousin, you'll do anything to help them be the best, help them overcome things. So it's but it has to start with love. Especially a family. You love one another. They're you're blood related, even though we're not on the team. But we try to develop that type of chemistry, that type of camaraderie, and then the discipline. We talk about that because you can't have one without the other. Love, family, and discipline. Those are the three things that we want to instill in our team and our players.
Once again, this is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach of University of Memphis basketball.
R&R on Sports with iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsuki Network. Blues in the Basement live interviews from some of the biggest blues artists in the country.
Bobby Rush.
Wonderful. May God bless you all. All right.
People keep asking me to sing about a good man.
Blues in the Basement. Stay up to date with the biggest blues festivals in the world. Blues in the Basement. Now podcasting and available on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and IG. And download the Blues in the Basement app.
I mean, this music just makes for a good time. All I need is a beer and some babacoo.
And some babacoo.
Blues in the Basement. In the Basement. In the Basement. In the Basement. In the Basement.
Uno. I'm not a Puerto Rican, but I'm speaking so that you know. And understand I got the gift of speech.
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach of University of Memphis. Coach, we implemented a lot on family. Just talk a little bit about how was it to coach your son, Saul Smith, as a coach, as a father,
Hey, there's nothing greater than we talked about family, and there's no greater love than there is for your siblings, for your children. And I was fortunate enough to coach two of my sons. I coached Gigi at Georgia for 2 years, and then I went to Kentucky and coached Saul, who's on my staff now. He's one of the assistant coaches now for the Tigers. And it was a wonderful experience. Those were 6 of the winningest years in my coaching career. But they were both different in their personality and how they handled things. It's tough because, you want to treat them like you treat everyone else on the team. If you don't, you're going to have some divisiveness. You're going to have people and players concerned about, is he getting, because he's his son, he's getting to play more. He's getting a free pass. But Saul was one of the hardest working players I've ever coached, and that made it. And he was one of the better players. He's still one of the top assist guys in the history of Kentucky basketball, and he's very, very competitive. And Gigi the same way. So it was a wonderful experience. And when coaches ask me about it today, I tell them, that's a great. If you have a chance to coach your child, do so.
So with coaching your son, like you said, it is no difference in coaching, a regular player that is not, any kin to you.
Well, it's tough. It is a difference because I sleep with his mother. So I've been sleeping with his mother for 40 plus years. So she has a lot to say, and that's where you have to be very, as a coach, as a parent, as a father. That's just like any parent. I mean, your relatives, your mom and dad, they're going to be concerned about, is Markel getting a fair shake? Is he playing enough? Is he happy? I've always been one of those guys that, happy is about, happy anniversary, happy birthday, happy for the birth of your child. This is basketball. You're going to be. It's not about being happy. It's about performing at the level you have to, and that's going to be being not necessarily satisfied, but doing your best. And if you do your best, then you're going to be happy.
So how difficult was it, kind of balancing that farther side as into the coaching side as coaching your son?
Well, you certainly you're not going to have the same feeling for. You hope you do, but for each individual, for each player on your team. But obviously, Saul is my son. It's blood. So you might find yourself, maybe being harsher, on him, because your expectations are great, and that's what you have to balance. You have to balance. Am I treating him fairly, as like I'm treating everyone else? And that's the toughest challenge for you, because you can kind of, you can turn your son off by being being overbearing. Trying to make him do something he's not capable of doing. And so you want to be very kind. But it was the best thing. Again, loved working with him, seeing him grow, seeing him develop.
Once again, this is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, my current coach, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach, University of Memphis. Coach, we talked a little bit about your son and seeing for the time you've been here, most of the guys, as myself, it feel like a son already to you. Just wanted to ask, so some of the things you've seen out of me so far, some of the things you expect out of me as a leader, and what is it like being a leader in the Coach Tubby system?
Well, I appreciate you because I'm the biggest fan of college athletes today. You, Markel, because there are other distractions. You have so many distractions, especially with the social media, the media period, just like us doing this interview. There's that group of people out there that are evaluating everything that you say, that you do, and there's little kids that are watching everything you say and do, and so you have to be, and that's why I mentioned that this is such an honor for me to be doing this interview with you, because it tells me a lot about you as a person, tells me a lot about you as a student athlete, as a leader, that I've watched over the last few months that we've done individual workouts. I've seen you how vocal you are, and you lead by example. And that's what a true leader does. He's out front in the drills. You're hustling all the time. You're not just working to improve your game, but you're talking to help your teammates and the other players as well as encouraging them. And so that's and now the biggest concern I can't the concern, but sometimes the fear coaches have is how are you leading off the court? You see it on the court, but are you doing the things in the dormitory? Are you saying to this player, look, that's enough. We've it's far enough. We can't. This is going to take us down the wrong path. So let's regroup here. Come and go with me. I'm getting you out of this situation, and so we can get into in the right environment. But you have obviously you played a lot of games last year. So I can just look at statistically. I know the things you need to improve on, but shooting 40-some% from the floor and shoot 47% from the floor. I know we got to pick it up from 3-point. That's something we really talked about because I think you're capable of being one of the top 3-point shooters in this American Athletic Conference. Free throw shooting, we've talked on the things that you have to really work on there. I know and so that's how we can measure how much you're improving. And those are things that we have to set goals. Just like we talk about our academic goals, your basketball goals of the areas that we need to improve on. What are some of the areas you think that you think you need to improve on?
It's basically me just staying more consistent. Like you said, being a better leader, being more vocal, and just leading by example for those guys on and off the court. My biggest thing is probably in the classroom, leading by example, getting on the dean's list or the 3.0 club, just to lead by example for those younger guys.
Absolutely. That's and that's going to take you a long way. And in the future, that's what it's about. It's about now, but it's also about the future. Are you going to be able to – and that's what we want our players to be able to do, be good citizens in this community that I used to always tell them, I want you to get a job and be good tax-paying citizens. So you can take some of the pressure off of all of us, okay?
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach for the University of Memphis on the Kazukian Network. And don't forget to go listen to our shows, R&amp Sports, Blues in the Basement, Funky Politics, 3BC, and of course, my show, Diary of a Tiger, once again on the Kazukian Network. Coach, a little bit, that championship team at Kentucky. Talk a little bit about what did you learn and some of the things you still implement in your coaching style.
That was a wonderful experience I had in '98 when we won the national championship. And our first year was, we thought we were going to win a few more after that. But it's not easy. It's very few. The University of Kentucky has 8 championships over 90 years plus of playing basketball. I don't know that at the University of Memphis, not many schools have won national championships. One school has won 10 or 11 in UCLA. And then Kentucky is second with 8. So, and we were fortunate that we were able to win a national championship, and I really appreciate it. It's all about the players, though, the guys that stepped up, guys like Jeff Shepard, Cameron Mills, Saul Smith was on the team, Nazir Muhammad, Jamal McGlure, Allen Edwards. There's a lot of guys that are still Wayne Turner. I can just name the whole group because Scott Padgett, they went on to play at some level, NBA, pro overseas basketball, CBA. But it was it's a moment to be cherished. I don't really wear my championship rings. People ask me, say, Coach, how come you don't wear it? But it was it's one of those moments in your life that will usually shape who you are. Once it's sort of like watching the NBA. You hear about LeBron James, now he has. When you talk about Kobe Bryant, all the championships he had, or Michael Jordan. But once you win, the drive and the determination to do it again is great, and that's why we're here. I really believe that the University of Memphis, has all the resources in place for us to compete for championships.
Once again, this is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach of the University of Memphis on the Kazuki Network.
R&R on Sports with iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Kazuki Network.
Rolling down the street with my radio on, listen to funky politics.
The mayor of the city of Memphis, Mayor Jim Strickland. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Laid back with my mind on my money and my money on my mind.
Dr. Sharon Griffith. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good afternoon.
What you say, Grandpa?
Did he call me Grandpa?
We keep it real, we keep it right, and we keep it funky.
Funky Politics, part of the Kazuki Network.
Friends, before we go any further, let's be friends.
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, head coach of the University of Memphis, Coach Tubby Smith. Coach, through all your years of coaching, just wanted to ask one of your favorite players to coach.
Oh, every player I've ever coached have been my favorite player. I'm not saying that's being a little facetious, but I love the famous Alonzo Stagg was a great coach and coached Notre Dame years ago in football. But he said one thing, and that's the way I feel. I love every player I've ever coached, but there are some you didn't like that the way they did things. So, having said that, I had some guys that obviously coaching my sons, where I'm a little biased there because I am their dad. It was a fun time coaching them, but guys like Tayshaun Prince, who's still in the NBA, was a very, he was very cerebral, very committed, dedicated, talented, unselfish, egoless. He just did things that whatever you asked him to do. And some of the most talented players. Probably the most talented player was Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, Coach. I was just about to ask, how was it to coach Rondo?
Well, as I mentioned before, it was good. He did on the basketball court, and he's as gifted an athlete as I said I've ever coached. He had and most athletes of that level, of that caliber, that is so much more talented than their peers. Sometimes just like teaching a gifted student in a classroom, you have to give them assignments, way beyond what the other students, because if you were working on speed drills, he could beat everybody and if we're running, he could beat everybody by 25 yards in a 100-yard dash, or you doing just measuring their vertical leap, it was off the chart, if he. Just anything that. Now, everyone has shortcomings and all about attitude. I think that's the most important thing. But a lot of it has to do with how you were raised and who raised you and that type of thing. But I've always enjoyed. I enjoyed coaching Rajon. We won 28 games and went to the Elite Eight. Got beat by Michigan State, and they went on to the Final Four. So if we get by that game, it was overtime game. Mm-hmm. So we had other players surrounding him that really he made better. So my whole thing with that type of gifted athlete like yourself, how do you make others better around you? How do you make your teammates better? When you're that gifted, that's your responsibility. That's what your goal should be.
To make my teammates better.
To make your teammate better. You can do it. You're able to get to the rim. You're able to beat your guy off the dribble. Now I'm going to create opportunities for my teammates. I'm going to find the open spot. I'm going to find him open on the perimeter. I'm going to do things. I'm going to help him when he gets beat off the dribble. He can't guard this guy one-on-one, so I'm going to give him the help he needs.
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach of the University of Memphis on the Kazuki Network. For those who don't know, Coach, your time at Kentucky, you had a Tubby Smith Foundation. Hey, just talk a little bit about what you guys did and what was the motto.
Well, it was to serve in any charitable organization, and I learned that from my parents. My dad was a true to much is given, much is expected, and that's one of the that I live by. And it's better to give than to receive. And my dad was a Christian man. My mom too. We were in church every Sunday morning, sitting in there, singing in the youth choir, and so those are the values, and those are the moral and ethical things that I learned. And so giving is just second nature. So the Tubby Smith Foundation was founded when I became the head coach of Kentucky. I got to give a lot of credit to Van Florence, who's passed away just this past year. He was the director of our foundation, former Kentucky. He led the 101 Club, and they're a service group that helped all the sports, especially basketball, at the University of Kentucky for the Wildcats. And then, Rick Pitino, who I worked with, and when I took the job and followed Rick Pitino at Kentucky, he had a foundation. Daniel Pitino, his son, who had passed when he was just an infant. And so Rick encouraged me. In fact, he left seed money for me to start my foundation. So I give him a lot of credit, and other people that were very instrumental in helping me. And so it's doing things to generate revenue to give to needy people. And we had this the clubhouses, the Tubby clubhouses, which are still in existence today, but it follows me. The foundation just didn't stay. It's my foundation. So when we went to Minnesota, we did some of the same things. In here at the University of Memphis, the foundation will follow us here as well, and we'll be able to do and distribute and help in a lot of ways. And so we give to a lot of different organizations through our foundation.
Once again, this is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach on the University of Memphis. Coach, some of the most important things that your staff brings, whether it's here, coming from Texas Tech, Minnesota, just some of the most important things that your staff implements to players.
Well, they're an extension of me. I want to surround myself with the right people that have, they have goals. They all want to be head coaches. They have ideas. They're gifted. They have a passion for the game. They love people. They love players. They love teaching. And it probably starts with Alvin Poole Williamson, who was my first recruit at Tulsa. And he joined our staff at Texas Tech. I've always wanted him on my staff at some juncture. And because he had been at Texas A&M, SMU, and TCU, made it a lot easy for me when I went to Lubbock, Texas, at Texas Tech, to have him join the staff. So he's been great. He has 2 young boys, beautiful wife, great job there. I have Joe Esposito, who's been with me now for about 9 years, was with me as my basketball operations guy. He worked at Tennessee State. He kind of calls himself the White Shadow because he was on the staff, was a white guy working as assistant coach there under Frankie Allen, a good friend of mine years ago. So he's very talented, has done it before, has been a head coach before, and he's an excellent recruiter along with. And then Saul, the other third full-time who played for me and has a real feel for the game, is really gifted and understands the game, is going to be an outstanding. All these guys are going to be great coaches. Head coaches someday. And then Steve Goodson, who will be one of our assistant coaches when one of these guys leave the program. He'll be able to step in, but he's our basketball operations guy. And so we have, again, the reason we try to bring, because it's all about continuity. You're talking about consistency in your game, becoming more consistent. We want continuity in our staff, so that everybody is singing the same tune. You're hearing the same thing from every individual, every coach on our staff. The terminology on the basketball court, the things we stand for, the discipline, all the things you're going to be. And so that's so important when you take over a program.
Yes, sir. And one thing I can tell you, Coach, I've been very impressed with the coaching staff, how hard they came in and worked, and just the love they brought in from, like you said, a shadow of you, knowing that that's what you implement to your coaching style. And like we talk about as a team, we have a coaching staff this year that cares a lot about us and wants to see us succeed a whole lot.
Well, we're going to do our part. We're going to try to do things so that we can be a family, and families eat together. They sleep together, they bond. So it's just important. You have to make some sacrifices. Every one of the teams will have to sacrifice for the good of the team, and that's going to be critical. And I know that it will happen for us, Markel, and for you. You're a very talented player and a very talented radio host.
I appreciate it, Coach. Coach, what was it like to for your decision to come to Memphis, seeing that your love for Texas Tech and the thing that you did there?
Well, it's tough to leave players. That's the toughest part of it. There's a lot of things you can overcome, but you cannot overcome the love and the concern. Because we left a group of young men there that went to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 9 years, had a winning record for the first time in 7 years. So we felt like we did our part, and this is a new challenge. It gets us closer, back to the East Coast, because I'm from the Maryland area. I've worked in the South before, and we're very familiar. We know there's a lot of talent in this area, high school players as well, and so we want to just reach out to everybody in the community and make Memphis. I think we can have a bigger impact nationally by helping this city and helping this university grow.
This is Diary of a Tiger with our special guest, Coach Tubby Smith, head coach of the University of Memphis.
R&R on Sports with iConversation.
The executive director of the NBA Players Association, Ms. Michelle Roberts.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
He is currently managing director and chairman of USA Basketball, Mr. Jerry Colangelo, with us here on R&R on Sports.
Thank you, guys. Nice to be with you.
The one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Hey, Howard and Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Ken Griffey Jr., how are you today, sir?
I'm good. How about you guys?
Catch iConversation on R&R on Sports, part of the Katsukian Network.
Rolling down the street with my radio on, listen to Funky Politics.
The mayor of the city of Memphis, Mayor Jim Strickland. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Laid back with my mind on my money and my money on my mind.
Dr. Sharon Griffith. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good afternoon.
What you say, Grandpa?
Did he call me Grandpa?
We keep it real, we keep it right, and we keep it funky.
Funky Politics, part of the Katsukian Network.
We have come to a close of the premiere episode of Diary of a Tiger. Don't forget to go like and subscribe this podcast. I want to thank Coach Smith for coming in for my first ever episode of Diary of a Tiger. It is always good when you can just sit down and talk with your first year coach and soon to be Hall of Famer. This interview taught me a lot about the importance of family and also the importance of team and teamwork. Now, we all know Coach Smith is a legend, and I'm looking forward to learning as much as possible and being a leader for him and playing in his system. This interview only made me more eager to suit up for Coach Smith this year. Now, this season cannot get here fast enough. Until then, hard work for me is an understatement. Tiger Nation, stay tuned. This year will be one to remember. Now, don't forget, we do have other shows on the Kazukian Network. R&R Sports, Funky Politics, Blues in the Basement, 3BC. Oh, yeah. My show, of course, Diary of a Tiger. Till next time, be blessed.
Diary of a Tiger is recorded live at LPI Studios in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Hosted by Markel Crawford. Produced by Larry Robinson. Executive produced by Kazukian. Diary of a Tiger is a part of the Kazukian Network.
Guys out hunting and girls doing likewise. Honking at the honey in front of you with the light eyes. She turn around and see what you beeping at. It's like the summer's a